Hey guys, today we're going to cover notes 7-6, mid-segment of a trapezoid. All right, in this specific example, as you can see in the picture, the mid-segment would be EF. And that is going to be parallel to AB and DC. So that's one of the properties. All right, in order to find the mid-segment, you take those two parallel lines, you add them together, and you divide it by 2. You got to take half because the mid-segment is right in the middle. So we can say EF equals AB plus DC divided by 2, and that's the formula that we're going to be working with. All right, on number 1, it gives us, so we're going to be using the trapezoid for numbers 1 through 4, the one already shown above. It gives us the shorter side, and it gives us DC, which is the longer side. So we have to add those together and divide it by 2 so that we can find the mid-segment. So that gives us 20. EF is 20. We will do the same thing for number 2. So it gives us that short side and that longer side that's parallel to the mid-segment. And so we're going to add those together and we're going to divide by 2. We get 19. And again, that's our EF that we were looking for. All right, for number 3, it actually gives us the mid-segment. So that's 22. Now, an easier way to understand this is we can use the formula, but if I have my trapezoid and I know my mid-segment is 22 and DC, which is the longer side, is 38, all I have to think about is what is the distance between those two? Okay, so the distance between those two would be 16. Now, that's the same distance from here to here. Since 22 is right in between them, right, it's also a distance of 16. So all I have to do is work backwards and I can subtract those. 16. And so I would get 6. So that was one way to go about it. Another way is you could have just used the formula. So EF equals, so I'm going to say 22 equals, AB is what I'm trying to find, so I'm going to leave it AB, plus DC divided by 2. And at this point, it becomes algebra, so I need to get rid of that denominator by multiplying both sides by 2. And I get 44 equals AB plus 38. I bring that down. The last step is to get rid of the 38 by subtracting. And so I get AB equals 6. All right, for number 4, it gives you the shorter side. So I'm going to go ahead and use the formula. You can just subtract 47 and 41 and get the distance and find the other distance that way. But just so that we can understand this formula, I'm going to go ahead and use it. So you should have had this equation set up. At this point, we're trying to get this the DC by itself. So again, I needed to get rid of that denominator by multiplying. If I multiply on one side, I have to multiply on the other. And so I get 94 equals 41 plus DC. Now the last step would be to subtract 41 on both sides. So I get DC is 53. All right, for number 5, we are trying to find YZ, which is the midpoint. All right, so in order to do that, I need to find my X. So I'm going to go ahead and use my formula. So the mid-segment, in this case, it's different letters, but it's the same idea. So I have 5x minus 19. So to get my mid-segment, I add my shorter side plus the longer side, and I divide those by 2. So now, again, I'm solving for x, so I first need to get rid of that denominator. So I multiply by 2, and those are now gone. Now, if I multiply by 2, I got to remember that I'm multiplying the 2 into both of these terms. You can't pick and choose what you're going to multiply the 2 with. And you get 10x minus 38. Now, I bring this part down. But before I bring it down, I'm going to go ahead and combine my 14 and my 38. And I get 52. So at this point, I have x's on both sides. Remember that I move them over to one side. And I get 9x minus 38 equals 52. And so I'm going to get rid of that 38 by adding 38. And when you finish solving, you get x is 10. So remember, I needed to find yz. Now I will plug that in. And you get. So you will do the same thing for number 6. We need to first set it up. Our goal is to find kj. So I need to know what my x is. So remember that to find the midsegment, you take the shorter side plus the longer side of, that's parallel to that midsegment. And you divide those by 2. So the big thing here is we haven't practiced this in a while, I'm sure. But remember, just to get rid of that denominator, you just multiply by 2. That's the inverse operation. And so we get 50 equals, and I'm going to go ahead and combine my x's. So I get an 8x. And if I combine my constants, I get a positive 10. And so at this point, you should be able to solve. And I'm going to let you finish that. But when you solve, you should get x is 5. So now when I plug that in to find kj or jk, I get 6 times 5 minus 1, which gives me a 29. And I will let you go ahead and solve that last problem. So make sure that you pause the video so that you give yourself plenty of time to work before you see the answer.